Hey, thanks for checking in. Just a quick homemade video here about how our nice residential neighborhood in Newton, in Surrey, BC, has recently been spoiled with the sale of just one house and the subsequent inaction by the City of Surrey. So for 18 years, we've lived on this nice quiet cul-de-sac here in Newton. We've raised our family here and enjoyed many relationships with neighbors of diverse cultural backgrounds. This is zoned as a single-family residential area, but with the recent sale of this home here, we now have approximately a dozen tenants in and out of this house. In fact, some of my neighbors estimate there's even more living there. This home has been subject to recent rapid additions and the construction of buildings in the backyard without permits. Here's a photo of the house not so long ago when it was owned by people with some pride. We've known two families who have lived there over the years and raised their kids there as well. The house is quite small originally, approximately 1,500 square feet, but it was a perfect starter home. Both families had told us that they would have stayed had it not been for that small size. One of the families had 4 kids, so this is understandable. In the backyard is a garden shed that was original with the home. There were normal renovations over the years, like a kitchen remodel, gas fireplace, and a deck added around the back. Normal stuff. Suddenly, one day after the transfer of ownership, we noticed that garden shed had doubled in size. We had assumed that the fellow was building a workshop for himself. Next thing you know, there's a girl coming in and out of it. Yes, a girl living in the garden shed. One day she approached my wife, who was gardening in our front yard, introducing herself as our new neighbor in the coach house. Surprise, surprise. Evidently, the owners must have spoken to her. She never approached us again. Next, the entire front and backyards were sealed up in asphalt. It was clear nobody wanted to bother with yard work there anymore. I can actually understand sealing up the backyard with the asphalt, as there is an issue there with neighboring trees. More on that later. Then one day, my wife and I returned from a short holiday to find out there was an obnoxious addition to the other side of the house. This was literally slammed up so fast, there's absolutely no way it could have been properly done with permits or inspection. It was at this time that I submitted a complaint to the City of Surrey with photos, but the city never did respond. The next activity was the sudden appearance of a huge tent in May, and we could hear jackhammering. Again, I reported this to the City of Surrey, and so did one of my neighbors, but we only got the runaround. And it's quite remarkable how these projects always get slammed up during weekends and when people are on holidays, etc. So the next thing you know, the tent, which was obviously just put up there to mask temporarily what they were doing, the tent comes down, and there's this ugly little building attached to the original garden shed. It's so shoddy that it's not even square to the original garden shed. Again, we kept calling the city, who did actually come out and speak with the owners during construction, but nothing ever stopped. Then they brought all these cedar trees and lined them up in the front driveway and the backyard. Again, likely to hide further activity, but they never planted these trees. They all died. They became orange and dry all throughout the summer, ready to start a fire. They're still there to this day. Again, we reported these to the city as unsightly, but the city hasn't even enforced the removal of these trees. Then the flood of tenants started. Initially, the owners seemed friendly when I briefly met them, indicating that they would be living there themselves, with his mother-in-law and father-in-law. But it was just a ruse. They never did move in. So, coming and going all hours of the day are what appear to be workers and students, being picked up and dropped off constantly. Our cul-de-sac has become as busy as an international airport terminal. We are seeing young ladies getting into the back of trades vans, This lady here at least has a seat, but some of them appear not to. Others are piling into berry-picking vehicles, the kind we hear about on the news that have no seat belts. And this goes on all day and all night. And then the garbage. There are so many people residing here with no one in control of this household. They are just careless like animals. I don't understand, even as a renter, how do you just walk by all this garbage? How do you not pick it up? I mean, there's so many people residing in this house now and the adjacent buildings, they can't possibly get all the garbage into the garbage cans or the recycling bins. So it overflows. Some weeks the garbage trucks won't even pick it up. It's so overflowed. And now I present to you this other new little problem we have. Rats burrowing under the fence onto my property. Again, I've lived here 18 years. We've never had rats. Ever. Squirrels, but never rats. Is the City of Surrey now going to start covering my pest control costs? Again, we've complained and nothing's happened. I don't understand why the city doesn't have our back. I mean, we've paid thousands upon thousands of dollars in taxes here over the years. Of course, my homeowner's grant never changes. So what's up with City Hall and bylaws turning a blind eye to all this? I can't even get a call back from the assigned officer. I did finally reach him during the summer at one point. I just got the old line that there's an ongoing investigation with that property. We take this very seriously. Blah, blah, blah. Sure you do. I mean, it's been going on for months. You can't even enforce the removal of dead trees. So one has to wonder, how long will it be before these guys build on and add more to their little slumlord empire on this lot? And I mean, why not? Obviously, there's no consequences. Let's say the city fines them $10,000. With a dozen or more renters paying the bill, I doubt they care. If I wanted any sort of renovation without permits, I just know the city would be all over me. Our previous experience with the city, back when Diane Watts was mayor, was an exercise in swift action, so we're in a real stark contrast situation here. There's this green space park in our neighborhood that many of the houses back onto. One summer, around 4 in the morning, had a couple dirt bags come in and try to steal from these yards backing onto this green space. With our block watch, we managed to foil it. The problem was that this park had become so overgrown, you couldn't see any of this. You couldn't even walk through here anymore. The brush was so thick. You couldn't see anything. These guys had all the cover they needed. So upon the neighborhood expressing our concerns to the city actually moved in and did a stupendous job of cleaning up everything, opening it all up again the way it should be. So what kind of conditions are all these new tenants living in anyways? This construction happened so fast that I'm not sure what kind of plumbing or heating these spaces even have. And how crowded are they? One door and a tiny window? What happens in a fire? No AC, I know that. One day during this past summer's heat wave, I saw the owner stop by with a couple lousy Walmart fans. It must have been brutal in there. Now, I have no issue with new Canadians and students from seeking out and living in affordable spaces. But they have to at least be clean, adequate, safe spaces. I mean, that's what coming to Canada is all about, isn't it? And there should be some control over this. But this city, this municipality seems to be bent on turning Surrey into a third world living environment. Speaking of safety, earlier I mentioned an issue with the trees here in this backyard. This is another problem we've had that we've complained about. Again, no action. These crappy trees here, right above these little structures. You'll see this old tree fort the neighboring lady's son started building years ago. Never finished. I had neighbors blocks away complaining about that eyesore. Nothing was ever done. So we've had major branches and trunk sections come down in windstorms. Not to mention the daily dump of needles, twigs, sap, and pollen everywhere. These unkempt trees were planted by the homeowner many years ago. She didn't anticipate them growing so big. Now she can't afford to cut them down. Or so she says. You can see I prune my part as best I can, as high as I can get up there. Now everybody around here loathes these trees. I mean, it's a tragedy just waiting to happen. Last year, this entire treetop section snapped up there, and it's literally just sitting up there, waiting to come down in the next storm. It's what you call a widowmaker. I apologize, I can't get a good photo of it. It's not just these tiny branches, it's this whole section. So anyways, that's my story, and I felt it important to share this so that others may be aware of what they're potentially in for. One day the house next door sells and everything changes. If these structures can be taken down and this home properly enforced back into a single family dwelling, then perhaps the squirrels will remain instead of turning into more rats. Thanks for watching.